you. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So first of all, thank you all for being here. We're very excited to share with you the exciting things signing up for band for this year. Before we get started, just two quick things. So first, you may have noticed the chat is turned off. You may have a lot of questions, but for right now, just listen to our presentation. We want you to hear the information we share and just absorb it for right now. At the end of the meeting, we will turn the chat back on, and then you will be able to ask any questions you still have left over. So just hang tight on those questions. The other thing is make sure you stick around to the end of the meeting because we're going to share out a link to a form that will let us know that you're interested in joining band. And we need you to fill out that form in order to do the next step in the process. So make sure you stick around to the end of the meeting so that you can fill out that online form and then we know you exist. All right, as we go to our next slide, you'll see there are two band teachers at each middle school. So when you join band in sixth grade, you will have both of those teachers for band. And band will just be a normal class in your school schedule, just like all your other classes. So it takes place during the school day and is a regular class. So the teachers listed under your middle school, you might have one day, a different one the other day, or you might have both. If you have any questions about band during this process, try to contact the teacher of the middle school you'll go to next year, but you can really ask any of us and we'll have answers for you.
So you may be wondering, why study music? Hopefully you're here because you've already decided that studying music is a worthwhile task, but of course it's something that's really important for us to talk about. And one of the first important reasons is that we believe that studying music allows children to discover their talents. And I'll give you a little background information on me. Neither of my parents were in band, they hadn't done music lessons or anything like that, so when fifth grade rolled around and I was at Goodwin Elementary, go Eagles, and I said, you know what, I want to be in band. And my parents were like, oh, okay, I guess we can do that. And they tried it out and, they were like, oh, she's practicing all the time. Oh, she's really good at this. And eventually they found that I had this hidden talent of music that they didn't even know I had. And so studying music gave me the opportunity to find that talent and find that love of a whole new skill that I didn't even know I had and my parents didn't know I had. Music also helps children to develop discipline and grit. So learning an instrument is hard, and just like anything that's worthwhile in life, it's going to take some work. There's going to be some times where you find yourself struggling more, and our students are provided with a great team of their peers and their teachers who support them, and they continue to grow in their discipline and their grit. And then when they get to the other side, they have this wonderful reward of feeling accomplished and proud of themselves. We believe that then the students can take these new skills, this discipline, this grit, this perseverance, and they can apply it into all other areas in their life. Music is also a means of self-expression. In today's world, it's so important that our children have a way to express themselves. Words, of course, are a great way to do that, but sometimes in life we find that words can't always do that. And when students have a way to express themselves that they feel comfortable with, we find that our students are happier and healthier. So we think that music is a great way to do that. Learning a musical instrument has also shown to help in other academic areas. I'm sure we've all heard about the studies. Students who learn an instrument have higher math scores, and there's lots of studies that say lots of things, but what we know is that students who are in band do tend to be our students who are on our honor roll and our high honor roll. It helps them in class. Maybe it helps their creative thinking. It helps their discipline, perseverance, and grit, as we mentioned. And perhaps it also allows them to think outside the box a little bit too. And lastly, studying music is great because you can enjoy it for a lifetime. Our goal is that our students will learn to love music and learn to appreciate it. So then when they're adults, they can continue to be patrons of the arts and just continue to spread the love of music with their families as well.
As Mr. Broff said earlier, band in sixth grade meets daily as a graded class. So students have math and language arts, and they would also have a period of the day when they go to band. Band classes are usually made up of their instrument group in sixth grade. So for example, clarinets would be in one class together, and there might be a brass class with cornets, trombones, baritones, tuba. In a normal school year, we have band concerts. And to prepare for those concerts, there are early morning band rehearsals. And those are the only chance students have to rehearse as a group with all of the different instruments in sixth grade. And those normally occur starting weekly in October from 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning. And that usually starts about 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the schedule before band concerts. Hopefully, next school year, 2021 to 2022, we can resume our concert schedule. And we usually have 2 to 3 concerts a school year.
I'm going to start talking about first steps towards choosing your instrument. So in a few moments, we're going to go through each of the instruments that are options to play in West Aurora 129 bands. We'd really like it if you could listen carefully to all those instruments, and as you're listening, come up with 3 to 4 instruments that you really enjoy the sound of. Then going forward after that, we will be talking a little more at the end about how we will be meeting with each student individually during a Zoom conference, and we'll be talking with the student about their instrument choices, helping them get fitted for an instrument that is appropriate for them, and they will then work through ranking their top few choices. After that meeting, a few weeks after everybody has met, we will then send information to parents about what instrument their child will be playing and what supplies they will need to play that instrument. And then you will be following up with instrument rental and getting the instrument, which Mr. Reif will talk about later on. So we're going to move on now so here are going to be the different instruments, and as you're listening, you want to come with 3 or 4 instruments in mind that you think that you may be interested in. So now we're going to introduce you to the instruments. So the first instrument that we're going to talk about today is a member of the woodwind family. It is the flute, and it is the highest instrument in the band. It is played differently than any of the other instruments. Unlike the other woodwinds, it does not have a reed, which is like a little wooden piece that goes on it. It gets blown across instead of directly into, and it actually gets held out to the side. So this is the flute.
Minor technical difficulties. It's not playing. We'll get there. And that is the flute. Now, moving down to the next slightly lower instrument is the clarinet. Just like the flute, the clarinet is a woodwind instrument, but rather than holding it out to the side and blowing across, the clarinet comes directly into the mouth and students hold it in front of their bodies. The clarinet is made out of plastic for our beginner students, but you'll find that professional clarinet players are playing on a wooden clarinet. It has silver keys just like the flute though. The clarinet is wonderful because it's so great at playing both low and high sounds. So they can play lots of different parts in the band. We need a lot of clarinet players because of this, and oftentimes the clarinet is considered the first violin of the wind band. So here's what the clarinet sounds like. And that is the clarinet.
Okay, the next two instruments are the bassoon, which is the taller red one on this slide, and the oboe, which is the shorter black one. These are not instruments that you can start on at the beginning of sixth grade. Instead, partway through middle school, we will ask if any students are interested in switching to learning one of these two instruments. Now, these instruments are a little more challenging to start, and there are some different challenges with them. So we're looking for students who have proven that they are good practicers, they're dependable members of the band, they learn their music, and they're doing really well on their playing tests. So if you're interested in playing one of these instruments, make sure you show us that you're a really hard worker, and most importantly, tell your band teacher during your instrument conference that you're interested in one of these. There are certain instruments that are better to start on so that you can switch to these. So we will make sure that if you're really interested in these, you can start on an instrument that will allow you to play it later.
Here is what the oboe sounds like. And here's the bassoon. And that is the bassoon.
The saxophone is also a member of the woodwind family, like the other instruments you have seen so far. The saxophone is quite heavy, so students use a neck strap to help support the weight when they're playing the instrument. As you'll hear in the recording, the saxophone is capable of producing a loud sound. So for that reason, we don't have as many saxophones in a band as instruments like the clarinet or the trombone. And the saxophone is the most expensive instrument to rent. And here's what it sounds like.
And that is the saxophone.
Okay, this is the cornet. The cornet is part of the brass family. So we have now seen all of the woodwinds and we are starting to look at the brass family instruments. The cornet is the highest sounding of the brass instruments. It gets the melody a lot, and instead of keys, it uses what we call valves to make the different sounds. The cornet is used in a lot of different styles of music, such as pop, hip hop, classical, and even jazz. If you've seen the marching band, there are a lot of cornet players in the marching band over at West High, and this is an example of the cornet.
And that is the cornet.
The next instrument is also a member of the brass family, and it is the French horn. And growing up as a student, French horn was kind of my Goldilocks instrument. Not too high, not too low, it was right there in the middle. And it was also an instrument that I found to be challenging, and I enjoyed that. If you are interested in playing the French horn, it would be advised to start on an instrument perhaps like the cornet, possibly the trombone, but it is not an instrument that we start right away in 6th grade. So if you're interested in the French horn, we encourage you to talk to your band directors during your band conference about it, but we're not going to start you on the French horn in the beginning of 6th grade. It's an instrument that has sort of a mellow, veiled sound, and it sounds like this.
And that is the French horn.
And with this, we go to the low brass part of the brass family, and we start with the trombone. We need lots of trombones in our band. You might have seen the trombones at West High in the marching band, and they tend to do a lot of special things there. One thing unique about the trombone is that instead of keys, like a woodwind instrument, or valves like trumpet, cornet, and French horn, it uses a slide in order to change its sound. And so this would be what a trombone sounds like.
And that's the trombone.
The baritone is another low brass instrument, and it is very similar to the trombone. In fact, they usually play a lot of the same music, especially early on in band. Like most of the other brass instruments, it does have valves or buttons, so that is one difference between that and the trombone. The rental process is a little different for the baritone. Most students rent an instrument directly through the middle school instead of music and arts, and we will explain all about that if your student ends up choosing baritone, but just know that process is slightly different. And here's what the baritone sounds like.
And that is the baritone.
So I started us out with the highest woodwind, and now for the wind instruments, I'm going to finish this off with the largest brass instrument. This is the tuba. The tuba is the last of the instruments today that we're going to talk about that you wouldn't start at the beginning of 6th grade. It is the largest and lowest sounding brass instrument, and if you are somebody that likes to turn the bass way up on your stereo and hear that sound, this may be the instrument for you. The tuba is what serves as the bass in our band. And it's really a lot of fun to play. So if you're interested in this instrument, definitely talk to your band director about starting on trombone or tuba, and then partway through 6th grade, we'll have some of those students try trombone or baritone, and halfway through 6th grade, we'll have some of those students try out the tuba and give them the opportunity to switch to the tuba.
And that is the tuba.
So we've heard about the woodwind instruments and we've heard about the brass instruments. So now we will talk about the percussion. If your child signs up to play percussion, he or she will actually learn to play the 2 instruments you see here. We will play all the songs of the other instruments, all of the melodies on our xylophone, and we will also learn to play advanced rhythms on our snare drum. So your child would actually get something called a percussion kit, which consists of a xylophone or bell set and a practice pad, which my parents loved because it wasn't as loud as the snare drum. When your child is at middle school, we have snare drums there for them to use. They will use an actual drum at the middle school. And as they become more advanced, they will branch out to other percussion instruments such as timpani, bass drum, and some other things. But their primary focus at the beginning of the year will be on the 2 instruments you see here. Now, Ms. Smith is going to show us first the xylophone sounds and then the snare drum sounds.
And that is the percussion.
Okay, so for all you students out there, you maybe want to take a pencil out and write down 3 or 4 instruments that sounded good to you. There's lots of great instruments to choose from in band. So let's talk about obtaining an instrument. But I want to go back to the instrument conferences. It's very important that you guys don't go out and rush to get an instrument before your instrument conference. We want to have a conversation with you and we want to hear what your preferences are. And we also need to build a band. So it's really important that we take everyone's interests into consideration, but we also make sure that we have a band that's balanced. It would be very sad if we had one instrument that was really not represented at all and one that was overrepresented. So we want to have that conversation with you at the band conference, take your interests into consideration, take the whole band program into consideration, and make a decision that's going to make the most amount of sense. And when you walk away from that band conference, we might not have a full finalized decision yet. We'll probably narrow it down to maybe 1 or 2 or 3, but that final decision is going to probably come after the band conference, most likely in the middle of February. Okay, so do keep that in mind. You might not have a finalized instrument selection after your band conference. Okay, so once that choice has been decided, and a band director will send out an email, we'll get in touch with you one way or another about what that final instrument selection is going to be sometime in the middle of February. There are 3 instrument reservation meetings, and those are March 3rd, March 4th, and those are 7:00 p.m. times. And then there's a Saturday, March 6th, which is at 9 a.m. And these reservation meetings are where parents can get in touch with a music and arts representative. Music and arts is a trusted vendor of the music education business. They sell quality brands, quality instruments that we have a long-standing partnership with. And we're not going to steer you wrong. We're going to make sure that those instruments are stocked with quality parts and pieces. And Music and Arts is really great because they work with West Aurora and they make sure that students have the right kind of reeds or mouthpieces or drumsticks. They know what books that we like. All of the supplies that you might need, Music and Arts knows how we do business. And if you are looking to get something that is tried and true tested, Music and Arts would be the way to go and go to those reservation meetings. Now, it is possible that you maybe have a sibling that went through the band program, or maybe you have a neighbor, or maybe there's somebody else that you know that you can get an instrument off of there. That's okay. What we would ask that you do is to have that instrument handy at those Zoom meetings so that you can show a band director, be like, this is the instrument that we have, it's our neighbors or it's his brothers or whatever the case may be. And we could take a look at it because there's certain brands that we know are going to be good quality student level instruments. And then there's some brands that they're not so good. And every year we do have a few students that somehow they come in with an instrument that is subpar. And it's really frustrating for the student because they're doing everything right, but the instrument just won't play the way it's supposed to. And they'll never quite sound as good as someone that has a quality student level instrument. Or maybe the instrument just breaks a lot and you have to send it to the repair shop more often, or maybe the repair shop won't even know what to do with it because the parts aren't quite right. So these instruments might have a very attractive price tag to them. I would just strongly caution against kind of going it alone and just getting the cheapest instrument there. You are more than welcome to contact any of the 8 of us here and we can steer you in the right direction and say, that looks pretty good, or I'd stay away from that. And it could also be possible that you have a quality instrument that is in bad repair. So maybe it's an instrument that just needs to go to a repair shop. But once again, please ask questions of any of the band directors here. We love answering questions about that sort of a thing because we want every student to have a quality instrument so they could have a quality, positive experience in band right from the get-go. Okay, so that's, I believe, everything I have to say about that. All right, great.
Okay, the slide that the parents want to know, what will it cost? The music shop offers what is known as a rent-to-own program, and it traditionally is about $27 to $50 per month, depending on the instrument that you and your student ends up on. And that is after a 2-month trial period. Those details will be talked about at those instrument reservation meetings in March. At those meetings, we will also go over the supplies that are needed for each specific instrument, and the yearly cost for those supplies can range from $10 to $40. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us, and we are going to go over some of the common supplies that are needed based on the different instrument groups.
Just like you would go and get school supplies for the school year, when you rent an instrument as part of the rental process, you get the supplies that you need to succeed in band. You'll get a music stand to put your books on to practice at home. You'll get a band book with all the songs we'll be learning throughout the year. And then each instrument has specific supplies to help your child take good care of this investment. The woodwinds need reeds, the brass need oil or grease. The percussion get a stick bag with the sticks and the mallets that are going to be used to play all of the instruments in the middle school. Of course, saxophones will need a neck strap. And then we want to clean them when we're finished playing, so they will get some kind of swab. Again, you will get detailed information according to whichever instrument you select.
And now I will speak while still muted, but I will actually discuss practice expectations. As beautiful as these instruments look in their cases and as lovely as they sounded on those recordings, those tones do not come out without a little work at home. We require that our students practice at minimum 20 minutes a day, 5 days of the week. Of course, if your child would like to practice more than that, by all means, please do. There will always be some sort of assignments in your child's book for them to work on at home, to practice, and their goal of bringing those exercises to a level of mastery to the best of their abilities, okay? I compare practicing similar to sports, and that is, at this stage, we are really working on the mastery. We're not only just looking to build the skills, but once we do build the skills, we also want to then be able to maintain those skills. And right now, it primarily deals with muscle memory. Just as a baseball player needs to practice swinging the bat in order to hit the ball, we need to spend the time to build the muscles so that when we need to complete a task, it just happens naturally, okay? Now, one thing about sports is, of course, if your child is participating in a sport, that particular sport tends to have scheduled practices. For band, we need to do this on our own. So the student would need to set a time during the day that they dedicate to working on their instruments. Now, for you parents, you may be thinking, well, I don't know anything about instruments or music. How can I help my child? Don't worry. My parents only knew how to play the radio and the 8-track player. All you need to do as a parent is to support your child and give them a good space that they can do their work without any distractions. And that will be doing their part that will help your child do well in our program. One final item that's on the board there is that students who practice regularly are the ones who actually enjoy doing band. They are the ones who eagerly raise their hand and are excited to play their assignments.
Well, hopefully you guys are all excited about the West Aurora Middle School Band program. All 8 of us band directors here love what we do in West Aurora, and I know that the 3 high school band directors at West High are just as excited about our current 5th graders and the prospect of them joining the band program next year in middle school. You may not know this, but the West Aurora School District actually has one of the oldest school band programs in the entire country. We actually just celebrated our 100-year anniversary. So by joining the West Aurora Band program, you are joining this great and long tradition. We have tradition of excellence and of pride, and our students have a ton of fun along the way. So we really hope that you're going to go ahead and take these next steps in order to join the West Aurora Band program. The first thing that we need everybody to do is to complete the information form that you'll find at www.129finearts.org. Now you may have filled this form out earlier. We've added a couple questions on there, and we just want to ensure that we've got everybody connected. So if you've already filled it out, go ahead and head to that website again, and you can fill that out just to make sure that we have your name and your information. And that is what we will use to schedule your instrument conference. Now, to reiterate and review, those conferences will be on Zoom this year. So in about 2 weeks, you will hear from one of the 8 band directors about the day and the time of your student's instrument selection conference. Parents are welcome to attend this meeting as well. And you'll be able to be with your student as we talk about their interests, what sounds they like, and we'll even have them do a couple things like buzz their lips, and we'll just see what the overall shape of their mouth looks like. At the end of that conference, your student will have 2 to 3 choices, top choices of instruments that they like. And then a couple weeks after that, your student will be given notification of which instrument they will be playing in 6th grade. And then once they have that instrument, they'll be ready to attend our March Instrument Reservation Zoom meetings. At this time, a representative from Music and Arts will be able to walk everybody through the instrument rental process and answer any questions along the way. And the most exciting step, step 4, is to begin band at the start of 6th grade. We are so excited about that step and just can't wait until we can finally get all the way to August from now, when your student has the opportunity to first learn how to open up the case and make their first sounds. So we want to just take the time to say thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight and allowing us the opportunity to talk about the exciting opportunity that your student has to join the band program here in West Aurora. Please be sure to fill out the form. This is a direct link if you want to type this in. It's TINY, tiny.1/band 2021. And I believe Miss Buettner has even put that in the chat. And that will take you directly to that information form I mentioned earlier as step 1 to make sure you are on our list. At this time, we are going to take some questions. Of course, there are a lot of people in this Zoom, so we have found the best way is for parents and students to type the questions in the chat, and then we will read those questions out loud and answer them. If you have a specific question, maybe it's personal to your situation, please feel free to reach out to one of the band directors from your school. If you're not sure which middle school your student is attending, that's okay. All 8 of us are able to answer your questions because we've all been doing this all in West Aurora, and we all do this together. So if you're not sure, just go ahead and give somebody a call or send them an email. You can also reach out to the front office at your school, and they'll be able to tell you which middle school your student will be attending. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and open up that chat. If you have any questions, please feel free to type those. Once your questions have been answered and you want to go ahead and head out, you are welcome to do that, or you can stick around if you want to hear anybody else's questions. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to continuing to work with you as we get your child excited about band. Let's see, Mr. Garland, it looks like we have a question. Are the Zoom meetings in March one-on-one, or are they whole group like this meeting we're in right now?
I take it, are we referring to the meetings with music and arts?
Yes, the March meetings are music and arts meetings.
And I would, as I'm guessing, one-on-one, because you would be talking directly with a music and arts representative.
Mr. McClear, do you want to clarify that for us?
Sure. Yes. Hi, everybody. This is John McClear. I'm the Fine Arts Curriculum Coordinator for West Aurora. Those meetings will be a large group, just like this one. And there, the music and arts representative will walk through the website that we will be using to do the contract registration. They've done this already with a few other area school districts and have a really smooth process, and we're excited to work with them. So the one-on-one meetings will be with the band directors, and they will be contacting each of the students and families directly because you filled out the form that was linked earlier. But the whole group meetings in March will be informative and will help you rent that instrument contract at that time.
All right, Mr. Bross, I'll give you this
Question that
next
was
one.
addressed directly to me, so I'll go ahead and say that before it gets lost and I forget about it. Somebody asked, if I do band, can I still do sports? Yes. I would say, at least at Jefferson, most of our students who are in band are also involved in sports. And the band rehearsals that we just have a couple that are outside of the school day, which are really just before school, in morning band in preparation for our concerts. And our concerts are also later in the evening. But we take a lot of care in scheduling those concerts to make sure that they don't interfere with sports practices. So you can absolutely do after school sports and also be involved in band.
Ms. Buettner, we have a question. Is which instrument is mostly in the band? How would you answer that?
Well, all of the instruments that you saw in this presentation are included in the band. We don't have any set specific numbers, but if you're looking for the instruments where we tend to have the biggest groups, I would probably say clarinet. We need a good number of students on that instrument. And then cornet, because as Mr. Reif spoke, cornet and trombone actually have the opportunities to switch to some of those special instruments that we discussed earlier in the presentation. But all of those instruments that you saw, they are part of the band.
Okay, we have a question, Mrs. McFedrin. What if my student does not want to stay in band? Do they need to be in band for the whole school year?
So it depends on when your student maybe makes that choice. We want everyone to try band, but maybe if it's not working for them or they aren't able to find time to practice, depending on the school and the dean that makes the schedules, they just might be removed from band at the end of a quarter, not in the middle of a quarter to interfere with grading. And to go back to instruments that are in band, we also like to have a lot of trombones.
Mr. Garland, how long is band each day?
Well, currently, with our current schedule, it is 40 minutes. Normally, I believe it's somewhere between 43 and 48 minutes. I think it's 40, or no, 40, no, 43 is it. Okay, so roughly a 40-minute day, because it is simply a class period in the day. So it's just as long as your social studies class and your science class and your PE class, and not as long as language arts because you have a double block.
Ms. Buettner, we have a question. Is payment due at the March instrument meetings?
So for those March instrument meetings, there will be a small charge for those supplies that we talked about earlier in the presentation, like the book and the music stand. So supplies will be purchased in March, but the charge for the instrument won't be applied until your student gets the instrument. And that's usually about the first or second week of September. It depends on the school. It was obviously a little different this year. But that's what the timeline that we try to get instruments out to students. And when your student comes home with their instrument, that is when the charge for that 2-month rate will be applied.
I'm gonna say one thing out loud. So someone had asked about the link, and there is a fresh, different link in the chat. So if that was you and the link said restricted, scroll up in the chat a little bit, and there is another one that has been placed in there. And then I'm gonna ask Mr. Bross to answer, how many electives are the middle school 6th graders able to take?
That's a really great question. So in 6th grade, you only have one elective class. So you would choose between either taking band, or you could take the exploratory rotation, which means that you just spend 1/4 in 4 different electives. Now, when you get into 7th grade and 8th grade, for most students, their options open up a little bit. If they do not require a double block of math, then they will instead gain a second elective, where then they can either take full year courses, foreign language, or semester-long courses, in addition to also being in band. So 6th grade, you do have to choose between band or 1/4 of each exploratory. And then in 7th and 8th grade, for most students, their options open up a little bit more for multiple electives.
All right, got a question for Mrs. McFedrin here. Will the choice and decision for the instrument be made in the Music and Arts March 3rd and 4th meeting or before that?
So we will be contacting parents and students about the final instrument choice sometime in February before the meetings. That when you go to the meetings in the beginning of March, you know what supplies and what you are renting for your final choice instrument.
Mr. Garland, why do some of the instruments cost more than others?
Because some instruments are quite a bit more expensive than others. The cost of a saxophone is about twice as much as the cost of, let's say, a cornet, flute, clarinet, trombone, and the percussion kit. So because the instrument costs a bit more money, so does the rental on that particular instrument.
Okay. Miss Butner, do we have to come early in the morning to play with the whole band?
So those early morning rehearsals that we spoke about are very important, and we do require that students come to those meetings because, as we said earlier in the meeting, you will have a class period with just your instrument. So maybe the clarinets are one class and the flutes are another class. But we do the early rehearsal so everyone can come together so we can play together for a concert. The concerts would not be possible without those morning meetings because the clarinets might not know how to play with the flutes, and the saxophones might want to go at a different speed than the trombones. And we work together in those morning rehearsals so that we can play as one team and make one sound so the concerts are successful. And actually, if those early rehearsals, if you find that it's difficult to get there, we do encourage carpooling, and we can help you set that up as we've done in the past to help get all of our band members there.
We have a couple of supply questions, and I'm just going to answer them because I think I can combine a couple of questions in one. So someone asked about delivery of the supplies, and the supplies will be delivered directly to the middle schools, and that in the fall. So you will wait to the fall to get them, but then that will allow us to show students how to use them so they don't destroy them before they actually need to use them. And so someone else also asked about, do you have to bring an instrument to the reservation meeting? And the answer is no to that. That is where you will sign up to get an instrument, and then that information, and then that will be delivered to school in the fall.
I see a question about, can students in band be in choir and drama as well? You want to take that one, Mrs. McFedrin?
Sure. Yes, we encourage students to do as much as they can in middle school. So I believe Mr. Bross was talking earlier about students being able to do sports and band. You can still do choir and drama. Choir, it might be different from each school, but they usually meet in the mornings to practice. And drama, when they do plays and musicals, that's usually after school. That's not conflict with band. Band is during the day, and the early morning choirs will not be scheduled on the early morning band days. We make sure of that.
And then the last one I think that I'm seeing in here right now is how much does a flute cost? And I think Mr. Garland had talked a little bit how saxophone is more expensive. I believe all of the other ones that you can start on this year are all in that like $27 range. Flute, clarinet, percussion. What am I skipping? Trombone. Is just the saxophone that is more expensive.
Hey, Mrs. Hunt and Mrs. Butner, do you remember Aiden Rocha?
I remember Aiden,
I do. How is he
a
doing?
great percussionist.
Do we have a sibling here who's going to join band? We love siblings. And sometimes you're the first sibling in your family and you're setting the road for everyone else, but that's awesome.
And I didn't get the opportunity to meet Aiden because last year was my first year in the district. So it sounds like he was in really good hands with Mrs. Smith and Mrs. Hunt.
That's cool.
All right, well, I believe we are caught up on questions, but please feel free to post any more. I'll play some fun Star Wars band music here. If you have any questions, make sure that you type them in the chat now or reach out to one of your band directors. We will stick on for a few more minutes, but if you don't have any questions, you are welcome to leave. We hope that you have an excellent night, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Bye.